The morning air hung cold over the Ruhr Valley in early April 1945. Oberfeldwebel Klaus Hartmann climbed into the commander's cupola of an American tank his crew had captured 3 days earlier. The five-pointed white star on the turret had been hastily painted over with German crosses. Around him, the Reich was collapsing. His own Panther sat 200 meters away, abandoned, its final drive shattered after barely 80 kilometers of operation. The American tank's engine turned over on the first attempt. Smooth, reliable, almost boring in its predictability. Hartmann's hands found controls that responded immediately, precisely. The transmission shifted without grinding. The engine maintained steady power without the temperamental surging. His Panther's Maybach engine exhibited constantly. Within an hour of operation, Hartmann would write in his personal diary, a document later captured by American forces. The enemy tank starts reliably, drives predictably, and requires no coaxing. Our Panthers are technically superior in every specification, yet this simple American machine performs its function without drama or failure. I do not understand how we are losing to such basic equipment, yet we are. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. That diary entry, preserved in the United States Army Heritage and Education Center at Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania, captures one of World War II's most profound ironies. German tankers, trained to believe their Panthers represented the pinnacle of armored warfare, discovered through direct experience that the supposedly inferior American Sherman possessed a quality more valuable than any technical specification. It worked. Consistently. Reliably. Without constant mechanical attention. The psychological impact of this discovery rippled through German armored units in the war's final months. Crews who had absorbed years of propaganda about German technological superiority confronted undeniable physical evidence that contradicted everything they had been taught. The Americans had not won through superior engineering. They had won through something more fundamental. They had built a tank that could be counted on to function when needed. The story of Wehrmacht crews operating captured Sherman tanks reveals more than comparative mechanical reliability. It exposes the fatal flaw in German military thinking that prioritized impressive specifications over operational sustainability. It demonstrates how propaganda collides catastrophically with material reality, and it explains why Germany lost the tank war despite producing vehicles that looked superior on paper. The Panther tank entered production in January 1943 as Germany's answer to the Soviet 34. After encountering 34s during Operation Barbarossa in 1941, particularly at the Battle of Mtsensk in October 1941, German High Command recognized their existing Panzer III and Panzer IV tanks were outclassed. The Panther Commission formed in November 1941. Mann's design was selected in May 1942. The first prototype appeared in September 1942. On paper, the Panther represented the ultimate medium tank. Its sloped frontal armor measured 80 mm thick at 55 degrees, providing effective protection equivalent to 139 mm. The turret front measured 100 mm. The KEK 42L70 gun could penetrate a Sherman from over 2,000 meters away. Maximum speed reached 46 km per hour. The interleaved road wheel suspension provided excellent cross-country mobility. German tank crews received extensive indoctrination about Panther superiority. Training films showed Panthers dominating Soviet 34s and American Shermans. Instructors emphasized that one well-positioned Panther could destroy multiple enemy tanks. The propaganda was consistent and pervasive. German engineering had created an invincible weapon. Allied tanks were crude, simple, inferior products of mass production. Quality would triumph over quantity. The psychological foundation was carefully constructed. German tankers entered combat believing absolutely in their equipment's superiority. This confidence was not baseless. The Panther could indeed destroy Shermans at ranges where return fire proved impossible. Its armor could shrug off 75 mm rounds from frontal angles. In direct combat under ideal conditions, the Panther held clear advantages. But ideal conditions rarely existed in sustained warfare, and the Panther's technical superiority came with catastrophic hidden costs that would only become apparent through extended operations. The Sherman tank, officially designated Medium Tank M4, emerged from completely different design philosophy. American automotive engineers approached tank design using principles perfected in civilian vehicle manufacturing. Simplicity, reliability, ease of maintenance, mass production, interchangeable parts. These priorities shaped every design decision. The Sherman's development began in earnest in early 1941. The first prototype appeared in September 1941. Production started in February 1942. By war's end, American industry had produced 49,324 Sherman tanks across multiple manufacturers using standardized components. The Sherman mounted a 75mm M3 gun with adequate anti-armor capability against most German tanks except Panthers and Tigers. Later variants received 76mm guns for improved penetration. Frontal armor measured 51mm on the hull and 76mm on the turret. Maximum speed reached approximately 38 km per hour. Every specification compared unfavorably to the Panther. The Sherman's gun could not reliably penetrate Panther frontal armor. The Sherman's armor could not stop Panther rounds. The Sherman was slower. On paper, the comparison appeared completely one-sided. American tankers knew these facts. They called their Shermans Ronsons, after the cigarette lighter. "Lights every time," they said grimly. The nickname reflected genuine fear. Early Sherman models with dry ammunition storage had horrific fire rates when penetrated. Often 60 to 80% of penetrated tanks burned. Yet American doctrine never intended medium tanks to fight heavy armor alone. Tank destroyers, artillery, and air support were meant to neutralize heavy German tanks. Medium tanks performed the primary roles of exploiting breakthroughs, supporting infantry, destroying fortifications, and engaging soft targets. The Sherman's reliable mobility and excellent high-explosive ammunition made it ideal for these actual missions. But German propaganda portrayed different reality. Their films showed American tankers abandoning burning Shermans. German radio broadcasts mocked American Tommy Cookers. Wehrmacht training materials emphasized American equipment inferiority. German tankers entered combat believing they possessed overwhelming advantages. The first systematic encounters between Panthers and Shermans occurred in Italy in early 1944. German forces deployed Panthers with several divisions defending against Allied advances. American tank crews reported Panthers engaging effectively at extreme ranges, destroying Shermans before American guns could respond. Intelligence reports from Italy confirmed Panther superiority in direct engagement. American commanders requested better tanks urgently. Tankers wanted something that could fight Panthers on equal terms. The psychological impact was severe. Some American units developed what military psychiatrists termed Panther phobia, excessive caution when facing German heavy armor. But American after-action reports also noted something curious. For every Panther knocked out in combat, American recovery teams found 2 or 3 Panthers abandoned by their crews. Not destroyed, not disabled by mines, simply abandoned, often with fuel remaining in tanks but transmissions locked up, or final drives shattered. The pattern intensified during the Normandy campaign beginning June 6, 1944. German armoured units included significant numbers of Panthers. Initial encounters confirmed Panther combat superiority. American Shermans required multiple vehicles working together to engage a single Panther, usually attempting flanking maneuvers to target weaker side and rear armour. Yet, as Allied forces pushed inland, they found increasing numbers of abandoned Panthers along roadways and in defensive positions. Intelligence officers documented each find. Most showed no combat damage. Crews had attempted demolition but often failed to completely destroy the vehicles. Some Panthers sat intact, simply out of fuel. Others had mechanical failures too severe for field repair. Lieutenant James Bates, a maintenance officer with the 3rd Armoured Division, inspected dozens of abandoned Panthers during the summer of 1944. His reports, preserved in National Archives records, documented consistent failures: final drives broken, transmissions seized, engines burned out, fuel pumps failed, tracks thrown, road wheels damaged. Bates noted that many Panthers showed less than 500 kilometers on their odometers. Some had travelled less than 200 kilometers from their factories before mechanical failure immobilized them. The abandonment pattern suggested severe systemic reliability problems beyond what combat damage could explain. As Allied forces captured German-held territory, they inevitably captured Panthers. Some units attempted to operate these tanks against their former owners. The British Coldstream Guards famously operated a Panther they named Cuckoo during fighting at Geilenkirchen Castle in late 1944 and Operation Blackcock in January 1945. Canadian forces captured an intact Panther in Italy in October 1944. They called it Deserter and used it in multiple assaults before sending it for technical evaluation. The combat performance impressed Canadian crews. The Panther's gun and armour provided real advantages, but both British and Canadian experiences followed the same pattern. The Panther fought brilliantly for short periods, then broke down. Polish resistance fighters captured 2 Panthers during the Warsaw Uprising in August 1944. They used them to destroy German machine gun nests and to liberate the Gęsiówka concentration camp, freeing 348 prisoners. But within days, both Panthers were immobilized due to lack of fuel and batteries. The crews had to set them on fire to prevent recapture. The pattern was absolutely consistent across every instance of Allied forces operating captured Panthers. Impressive combat capability followed by rapid mechanical failure. The vehicles could fight superbly but could not sustain operations. German units also captured American Sherman tanks throughout the war. Wehrmacht tank recovery teams evaluated every captured enemy vehicle for potential use. Some captured Shermans were turned against their former owners. The German experience operating American tanks would prove revelatory in ways Berlin never intended. The first systematic German evaluation of captured Sherman tanks occurred following Operation Market Garden in September 1944. British and American armoured units lost numerous vehicles during the failed attempt to capture bridges in the Netherlands. German recovery teams secured several intact Shermans, including examples with 75mm and 76mm guns. Panzer Division received 3 captured Shermans in October 1944 for evaluation and potential combat use. The division's technical services battalion conducted thorough examinations. Their report, captured by American forces in April 1945 and now preserved in military archives, reveals German technical assessment. The report acknowledged Sherman inferiority in direct specifications. Armour protection inadequate against German 75mm and 88mm guns. Main armament insufficient to penetrate Panther or Tiger frontal armour. Lower maximum speed than German medium tanks. These expected findings confirmed German beliefs about enemy equipment inferiority, but the report continued with observations that surprised German engineers. The Sherman's engine started reliably in all weather conditions, including severe cold. The transmission shifted smoothly without specialized training. The suspension required minimal maintenance. The tracks were easily replaced by crew in field conditions. The power pack could be removed and replaced as a unit in approximately 10 hours. Most significantly, the report noted, "The American tank demonstrates remarkable operational reliability. During 2 weeks of testing covering 320 kilometers over varied terrain, no mechanical failures occurred. All systems functioned as designed throughout testing. This reliability explains how American units maintain operational effectiveness despite inferior technical specifications." That final sentence captured the essential truth German forces were discovering. The Sherman worked, consistently, predictably, without drama. For crews trained on Panthers that required constant mechanical attention, the Sherman's boring reliability proved almost shocking. The 2nd Panzer Division captured 2 Shermans during the Ardennes offensive in December 1944. One carried a 75mm gun, the other a 76mm. Kampfgruppe Kochenhausen incorporated both tanks into its reconnaissance elements, painting German crosses over the American stars. Oberleutnant Werner Sternebeck commanded the Sherman with the 76mm gun. His after-action reports from late December 1944 through early January 1945, preserved in German military archives, document his experiences operating American equipment. Sternebeck's December 28 entry noted, "The American tank requires no special procedures for cold weather starting. Our Panthers frequently refuse to start in this cold without extensive preheating. The American engine starts immediately. The transmission responds smoothly even when cold. Our Panthers require careful gear changes, especially when cold, or the transmission binds." January 3rd entry. "We have now operated the American tank for 7 days, covering approximately 140 kilometers. No mechanical problems have occurred. The engine consumes fuel at predictable rates. All systems function reliably. In comparison, our Panther company has 3 tanks deadlined for final drive failures and 2 for engine problems after similar distances." January 9th entry. "Fuel supply has become critical. All German armour is immobilized, waiting for fuel trucks that never arrive. The American tank sits with empty tanks, but mechanically sound. Our Panthers sit with various mechanical failures, even though some have fuel. The Americans' equipment philosophy makes more sense than I previously believed. A reliable, simple tank that functions when needed proves more valuable than a sophisticated tank that constantly breaks." These observations appear throughout German documents from the war's final months. Wehrmacht personnel operating captured American equipment consistently noted Sherman reliability. The psychological impact was significant. Crews trained to believe in German technological superiority confronted physical evidence contradicting that belief. The fundamental difference lay in design philosophy. German engineers optimized the Panther for maximum combat effectiveness in specific parameters: armor protection, gun performance, armor penetration at range. They accepted complexity and demanding maintenance requirements as necessary costs of superior combat capability. American engineers optimized the Sherman for sustained operations in varied conditions. They prioritized reliability, maintainability, ease of training, mass production, and logistical sustainability. They accepted adequate rather than superior combat specifications to achieve excellence in operational factors. The Panther's final drive system exemplified German design choices. MAN's original design called for epicyclic planetary gearing in the final drives. This was changed to double-spur gear system due to gear-cutting machinery shortages in German industry. The double-spur gears had inherently higher internal impact and stress loads. The fatal flaw emerged during development. The Panther's drivetrain had been designed for a 30 to 35-ton tank, but Hitler demanded extra armor and a heavier gun during development. The final production Panther weighed 45 tons. The final drive housings, designed for a lighter vehicle, could not handle the actual combat weight. Under load, the housings flexed. The gears inside bound up and destroyed themselves. The French army, which operated Panther units post-war using captured vehicles, conducted the most thorough evaluation. Their 1947 technical report titled Le Panther stated directly, "The truly weak spot of the Panther is its final drive, which is of too weak a design and has an average fatigue life of only 150 kilometers. 150 kilometers. Less than 100 miles before the final drives needed complete replacement. German wartime documents confirmed this catastrophic failure rate." General Heinz Guderian wrote in June 1944, "The lifespan of the Panther's motors, 1,400 to 1,500 kilometers, is significantly higher than the Panther's final drives. A solution to the final drive problem is urgently needed. An Eastern Front report from March to April 1944 documented that since the 1st of March, 13 final drives were replaced in 30 Panthers. A January 1945 Panzer Commission report listed 370 defective final drives from Panthers requiring replacement. Half of all Panthers abandoned in Normandy showed final drive failures as the primary mechanical issue. Sherman final drives, by contrast, could operate for thousands of kilometers without major maintenance. The fundamental difference was design approach. American engineers designed for the actual weight and operational stresses. German engineers designed for ideal and specifications, then added weight that exceeded design parameters. The Maybach HL 230 P30 engine, while powerful at 690 horsepower, suffered chronic reliability problems. During Operation Citadel at Kursk in July 1943, Panzer Abteilung 504 experienced 20 fuel pump failures by July 8. Fuel leaks from these failures caused 3 Panthers to become total losses due to engine fires. 2 Panthers from the initial deployment burned out from engine fires just getting off the trains before the battle even began. Documented Maybach engine problems included cylinder head gasket failures, connecting rod breakage, oil pump drive shaft breakage, engine fires from oil leaks onto hot exhaust manifolds, cooling fan drive bearing failures, and chronic overheating. The Germans derated the engine from 3,000 rpm to 2,500 rpm in November 1943 to extend engine lifespan. This reduced maximum speed from 55 km per hour to 46 km per hour and power output from 700 to 580 horsepower. Even after these derating measures, average Maybach engine life in Panthers was only 1,000 kilometers, according to the French post-war technical report, with maximum life reaching 1,400 to 1,800 kilometers in some cases. The Panther's turret traverse system added another layer of complexity. Early Ausführung D models used a single-speed hydraulic system, requiring approximately 60 seconds for a full 360-degree rotation. Later Ausführung A and G models featured selectable high and low gear ratios. At 2,500 rpm in high gear, the turret could traverse in 17 to 18 seconds. At low RPM or in low gear, traverse time extended to 60 to 93 seconds. The system's performance varied constantly with engine speed. If the engine died, the turret could not traverse at all. The Sherman, by contrast, used an independent auxiliary electric motor. The Sherman's turret always rotated in 15 seconds, regardless of engine speed. The commander could traverse the turret even with the main engine off using the backup generator. This consistency provided enormous tactical advantages. The Panther's theoretically faster traverse at optimal engine speed was meaningless when mechanical failures stopped the engine or when tactical situations required turret movement while the engine idled. Wehrmacht crews operating captured Shermans immediately noticed this difference. Obergefreiter Hans Müller, a gunner with 15th Panzergrenadier Division, wrote in a letter home in March 1945, later captured, "The American tank's turret moves at the same speed always. Our Panther's turret speed depends on engine speed. In combat, this means the American gunner can engage targets predictably. Our gunner must adjust for varying traverse rates." Another example of American practical thinking versus our theoretical perfection. The 7-speed manual transmission in the Panther was stiff and difficult to shift. Every gear change required effort and attention. Inexperienced drivers frequently ground gears or selected wrong ratios. Sherman transmissions were smooth and nearly automatic in operation. Drivers with basic automotive experience could operate Sherman transmissions effectively after minimal training. Hauptmann Friedrich Steiner commanded a Panther company in 4th Panzer Division. His unit captured 2 Shermans in January 1945 during fighting near the Oder River. Steiner's report to division headquarters, dated January 27, 1945, and discovered in captured documents, compared the vehicles directly. The American tanks demonstrate inferior combat specifications, but superior operational characteristics. Our Panthers possess better armor, better guns, better speed, yet our Panthers also require constant mechanical attention, skilled maintenance personnel, specialized spare parts, and favorable operating conditions. The American tanks require only fuel, ammunition, and minimal maintenance. They function in all conditions with crews of average training. Steiner continued, "I begin to understand why we are losing this war. We have built weapons that require perfect conditions to function optimally. The enemy has built weapons that function adequately in all conditions. Perfect conditions rarely exist in sustained warfare. The enemy's approach proves more effective strategically, though ours appears superior theoretically." If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. These observations from German officers reveal the psychological impact of confronting material reality that contradicted indoctrinated beliefs. Years of propaganda about German technological superiority collided with undeniable evidence that American equipment, while inferior in specifications, proved superior in the factor that mattered most: reliability. The Panther's narrow track width, despite acceptable ground pressure on paper, meant less actual contact with soft ground. In mud or snow, Panthers frequently became stuck. Their excellent cross-country performance applied only to firm, dry terrain. The Sherman's wider tracks provided superior real-world traction in varied conditions. German reports from the Eastern Front documented Panthers becoming immobilized in mud that 34s and Shermans could traverse. A March 1944 report from 9th Panzer Division noted, "Panther tanks became stuck in spring mud near Kirovograd, while Soviet 34s operated effectively in same conditions. Our theoretically superior ground pressure proves meaningless when narrow tracks sink into soft ground." Western Front reports told identical stories. American Shermans operated effectively in Belgian mud during autumn 1944, while Panthers frequently bogged down. The wider Sherman tracks distributed weight more effectively across soft surfaces. Crew ergonomics in the Panther were poor. The interior was dark and cramped. The gunner's position was more confined than in a Sherman. The loader had to reach across the large gun breech in awkward positions to access ammunition scattered around the fighting compartment. Combat efficiency suffered as crews tired. The Sherman's ammunition storage featured ready racks within easy reach of the loader. Everything was organized logically. American automotive engineers had designed the Sherman using the same human factors principles they applied to automobiles: make it easy for the operator. Wehrmacht crews who operated both types noticed immediately. A captured German training document from February 1945, titled "Lessons from Operating Captured Enemy Armor," included this observation. The American tank interior is arranged for crew efficiency. The loader can access ammunition easily. The gunner has adequate space. The commander has good visibility. Our Panther, while superior in combat specifications, tires crews more quickly due to cramped, awkward working conditions. In extended combat, crew fatigue affects performance significantly. The document continued with remarkable candor. We must acknowledge that the enemy has designed their equipment for sustained operations by average soldiers under difficult conditions. We have designed our equipment for optimal performance by highly trained soldiers under favorable conditions. The enemy's approach proves more effective in total war. By March 1945, Germany's military situation had become desperate. Allied forces were closing on Berlin from both east and west. Fuel shortages had reached catastrophic levels. Spare parts were unavailable. Experienced crews were dead or captured. New crews received minimal training before being sent to the front. Under these conditions, the Panther's complexity and demanding maintenance requirements became insurmountable liabilities. Units that captured American Shermans found them far more practical for actual combat operations than their own supposedly superior Panthers. Oberst Klaus von Schroeder commanded a depleted Panzer regiment in Army Group Center in early April 1945. His regiment included 5 operational Panthers, 3 captured 34s, and 4 captured Shermans. Von Schroeder's final report, written April 16, 1945, and discovered by Soviet forces, assessed his mixed equipment. The Panthers, when operational, provide superior firepower and protection. However, all 5 Panthers have significant mechanical problems. Final drives are near failure. Engines leak oil. Transmissions are difficult. We lack spare parts and skilled mechanics. I expect all 5 Panthers to be immobile within 100 kilometers of operation. The captured Soviet tanks are crude but functional. They operate reliably within their limitations. The captured American tanks prove most reliable. They start consistently. They drive predictably. They require minimal maintenance. If I could choose equipment for the current situation, I would prefer 20 American tanks to 10 Panthers. The American tanks will reach the battlefield and function when needed. The Panthers will not. This assessment from a German regimental commander captures the complete reversal of perception forced by material reality. Von Schroeder had been trained to believe Panthers were superior. Combat experience taught him that reliability mattered more than specifications. The French army, which operated Panther units post-war using captured vehicles, conducted the most comprehensive evaluation of Panther reliability. French forces in Germany in 1945 captured substantial numbers of Panthers. The French army formed the 501st and 503rd Regiments de Chars de Combat, equipped entirely with captured Panthers. These units operated Panthers from 1946 to 1950 under peacetime conditions with adequate maintenance support. Even under these favourable circumstances, the Panthers proved mechanically unreliable. The definitive French technical report from 1947, titled Le Panther, documented every mechanical failure and operational limitation. The report confirmed the 150-kilometre final drive life. It confirmed the 1,000-kilometre engine life. It documented fuel consumption, maintenance difficulties, crew discomfort, and tactical limitations. French engineers and tankers, initially impressed by the Panther's specifications, concluded that the Sherman was the superior combat vehicle when all factors were considered. The French report noted, "While certain Panther features are admirable, particularly the gun and optical equipment, the overall package is unsuitable for sustained military operations. The final drive failures, engine problems, transmission difficulties, and maintenance demands make the Panther operationally unreliable. The American Sherman, while inferior in certain specifications, provides the reliability necessary for actual combat operations." French operational experience repeatedly confirmed the 150-kilometre final drive failure rate. Units operating Panthers had to maintain large stocks of replacement final drives and train personnel in replacement procedures. Even with these preparations, Panther operational availability remained poor. The British conducted similar post-war evaluations. After Germany's surrender, British authorities commandeered a German Panther assembly facility at Hanover. They forced completion of 9 additional Panthers using existing components and German technicians. These 9 British-built Panthers completed, in spring 1946, were intended for comprehensive testing. Standard British armoured vehicle acceptance trials were conducted on 2 Panthers and 2 Jagd Panthers. The trials had to be halted when the last working Panther damaged its transmission during a hill climbing test. All other Panthers had already been cannibalized for spare parts or had broken down from mechanical failures. The conclusive British report, dated February 1948, stated that very little information of any value was obtained, noting the reason as the general mechanical unreliability of the Panther and Jagd Panther tanks. Britain, like France, found that captured Panthers were interesting technically but useless operationally. American testing at Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland examined captured Panthers throughout the war and afterward. Multiple Panthers were documented at the United States Army Ordnance Museum at Aberdeen. American engineers recognized the Panther's advanced features, but also documented its numerous flaws. The knowledge gained influenced post-war American tank development, though not by copying Panther systems. Rather, American engineers learned what not to do, how over-optimization for specific parameters creates systems that fail under operational stress, how complexity without corresponding reliability produces unusable weapons, how impressive specifications mean nothing if the vehicle cannot be sustained in combat. Wehrmacht experiences operating captured Shermans taught identical lessons from the opposite perspective. German tankers discovered that adequate specifications combined with superior reliability produced more effective combat vehicles than superior specifications combined with poor reliability. This realization shattered fundamental beliefs about German technological superiority. The psychological impact was profound. Officers like Oberst von Schroeder, Hauptmann Steiner, and Oberleutnant Sternebeck had spent their entire military careers believing German engineering was superior. Direct experience operating American equipment forced them to acknowledge that the enemy's practical approach proved more effective than Germany's theoretical perfection. The final months of the war provided overwhelming evidence. American and Soviet forces advanced relentlessly. German armored units could not stop them, despite possessing technically superior tanks. The Panthers and Tigers that German propaganda celebrated could not sustain operations. They broke down, they ran out of fuel, they awaited spare parts that never arrived. Meanwhile, Sherman tanks and Soviet 34s maintained operational tempo, despite inferior specifications. They functioned reliably, they consumed fuel at sustainable rates, they required maintenance that field units could provide. They reached battlefields and fought when needed. A captured German General Staff analysis from March 1945, discovered in OKW archives, assessed the armored warfare situation with brutal honesty. Our Panther and Tiger tanks possess superior combat specifications to all enemy tanks, yet we are losing the armored warfare. The reason is systemic, not tactical. Our tanks cannot be sustained in extended operations. Enemy tanks can be sustained. Sustainability proves more important than specifications in total war. The analysis continued. We have learned from operating captured enemy equipment that reliability matters more than perfection. The Soviet 34 is crude but operates reliably under terrible conditions. The American Sherman is adequate in specifications but excels in reliability and maintainability. Both enemy tanks embody design philosophies better suited to total war than our own pursuit of technical perfection. This admission from German General Staff represents complete intellectual surrender on the question of tank design philosophy. The officers writing this analysis had been trained to believe German engineering superiority was unquestionable. Material reality forced them to acknowledge that the enemy's approach was fundamentally more sound. The Sherman's operational longevity demonstrates which design philosophy proved more sustainable. Israeli forces recognized the Sherman's fundamental soundness and modified captured and purchased Shermans extensively. The M50 Sherman, with a French 75mm gun and Continental 975 engine, served from the 1956 Suez Crisis through the 1967 Six-Day War and the 1973 Yom Kippur War. The M51 Sherman mounted a French 105mm gun. It served from 1965 into the early 1980s. Israeli M51s successfully engaged modern Soviet T-54, T-55, and T-62 tanks, using 105mm heat rounds. Israel sold 75 M51s to Lebanese militias in 1976 and over 100 to Chile, which used them until 1999 and kept some in reserves until 2006. This operational longevity from World War II through the 1970s and 80s demonstrates the Sherman's fundamental design, soundness, and adaptability. The basic platform proved sound enough to accept decades of improvements and modifications. The Panther, by contrast, vanished. No nation adopted it for post-war service once captured stocks and spare parts were exhausted. The Soviets who captured hundreds of Panthers used them briefly, then discarded them. Czechoslovakia and other Eastern European nations that operated captured Panthers in the immediate post-war period quickly replaced them with Soviet designs. France and Britain, after thorough evaluation, concluded the Panther was not worth continued operation. The design influenced no subsequent tank development in any meaningful way. The Panther was a developmental dead end. Its complexity and tight integration meant modifications were impractical. The vehicle was optimized for its original configuration and could not adapt. Wehrmacht crews who operated captured Shermans in the war's final months witnessed this fundamental difference between adaptable, reliable design and over-optimized, fragile design. Their reports and letters home, preserved in archives across Europe and America, document the psychological journey from confident belief in German superiority to reluctant acknowledgement of American practical effectiveness. Oberfeldwebel Klaus Hartmann, whose diary entry opened this story, continued recording his experiences operating the captured Sherman through April 1945. His April 8th entry noted, "The American tank has now operated for 12 days, covering 230 kilometers. No mechanical failures have occurred. We have performed only basic maintenance, checking oil, greasing fittings, inspecting tracks. The tank requires nothing more." Our abandoned Panther required hours of maintenance daily and still failed after 80 kilometers. April 14th entry. "We are withdrawing toward Berlin. Fuel is nearly gone. American aircraft have destroyed all supply columns. The Sherman will soon sit immobile like everything else. But it will sit immobile due to lack of fuel, not mechanical failure. When this war ends, if I survive, I will remember this. The enemy won not because their equipment was better in specifications, but because their equipment worked when needed. That lesson applies beyond tank design. It applies to everything." Hartmann survived the war and was captured by American forces on April 27, 1945. His diary was confiscated during processing and eventually archived. Post-war interviews with Hartmann, conducted by U.S. Army historians in 1946, explored his experiences operating both German and American tanks. Hartmann stated, "I believed absolutely in German superiority. We were taught that our engineering was the best in the world. The Panther was proof of German genius. Then I operated an American tank and realized we had been wrong about what mattered. The Americans did not try to build the best tank by every specification. They tried to build a tank that would function reliably in all conditions with average crews. They succeeded. We failed because we pursued perfection instead of reliability." These words from a Wehrmacht tanker who operated both types capture the essential truth about the Sherman versus Panther comparison. The debate was never really about specifications. It was about design philosophy and operational priorities. The systematic analysis of tank effectiveness must account for the entire weapon system: design, production, logistics, maintenance, doctrine, crew training, tactical employment, and sustainability. The Panther excelled at a narrow set of specifications: gun penetration at long range, frontal armor protection in direct engagement, speed on good terrain, but it failed catastrophically at reliability, maintainability, production efficiency, logistics sustainability, crew ergonomics, and operational availability. The Sherman provided adequate performance in gun and armor specifications while excelling at reliability, maintainability, production efficiency, logistics sustainability, crew ergonomics, escape provisions, and operational availability. In total war, adequate technical specifications combined with superior systemic factors defeat superior technical specifications combined with inferior systemic factors. Every time. Wehrmacht crews learned this lesson through direct experience. They climbed into captured Shermans expecting crude, inferior equipment. They discovered reliable, practical machines that functioned consistently. The cognitive dissonance was profound and ultimately unresolvable within the framework of German propaganda about technological superiority. The lesson transcends World War II. The lesson transcends tank design. Any weapon system, any tool, any technology must serve its users under real-world conditions, must function reliably when needed most. must be maintainable with available resources and infrastructure, must account for human factors in operation and maintenance, must integrate effectively with other systems, must align with operational doctrine, must be sustainable through the logistics chain, must be producible in quantities that meet demand. Technical excellence that ignores these factors produces expensive failures that look impressive on paper but collapse under operational stress. Practical adequacy that embraces these factors produces war-winning tools that perform reliably under the worst conditions. The Panther represented German engineering's tendency toward over-optimization for specific parameters at the expense of overall system effectiveness. The Sherman represented American industrial pragmatism, design for manufacturing, design for maintenance, design for logistics, design for the crew. Wehrmacht tankers, who operated both types, witnessed this difference directly. Their reports, letters, and post-war testimonies consistently acknowledge that the supposedly inferior American tank proved more effective in sustained operations than the supposedly superior German tank. History delivered its verdict in May 1945, when American Shermans rolled into Berlin while abandoned Panthers littered the roads behind retreating German forces. The debate about which tank was better never should have existed. The answer was always obvious to those who understood that effectiveness in war is measured not by specifications, but by results. Klaus Hartmann's diary entry from April 1945 captured this truth perfectly. The enemy tank starts reliably, drives predictably, and requires no coaxing. Our Panthers are technically superior in every specification, yet this simple American machine performs its function without drama or failure. I do not understand how we are losing to such basic equipment, yet we are. Hartmann understood by war's end. Germany lost because it built weapons that required perfect conditions to function optimally, while the enemy built weapons that functioned adequately in all conditions. Perfect conditions rarely exist in sustained warfare. The side that builds for real-world conditions wins. The side that builds for theoretical perfection loses. 80 years later, the lesson remains clear and universal. Wars are won by systems, not by weapons. The side that builds the better system, even with adequate rather than superior weapons, defeats the side with superior weapons but inadequate systems. Wehrmacht crews who drove captured Shermans learned this lesson through direct experience that shattered their indoctrinated beliefs. They climbed into enemy tanks expecting inferiority. They discovered reliability, and in discovering reliability, they understood why Germany was losing the war. The Panther looked superior on paper. The Sherman worked in reality. Reality always wins. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.